Hello, it's Belinda. Today I am sharing a process video for a 12 by 12 layout that I'm going to be creating for this really beautiful photo that was taken in 2015. This is my daughter, myself, my mum and my grandma, who is no longer with us. It was a really special photo because it is 4 generations of women together, and it is the only time that that has happened in my family. So it is a really special, a really precious photo to me. I have held on to it for a very long time. It's one of those things that when something's really special, you want to make sure that whatever layout you create really does the photo justice, and I hope I'm about to do that. I have reprinted it in a slightly smaller size as well because I think that may go better with the design that I'm going to be using. So as the base for this layout, this was done quite a few months ago. I did this. I downloaded from the Confessions of a Paper Addict Facebook group. Virginia Walker offered, or she does offer, free cut files from time to time. So I think it was in February 2019, she offered this stitched cut file, and I went ahead and I cut it out on my silhouette, and then I've gone and I've used a variegated thread in tones of pink and red to just do some messy crosshatch stitching all the way around the heart. So the actual cut file had 2 hearts of stitch holes around the outside, and then this center heart was cut out. I got the idea from this stitching from Laura Alberts. She did something very similar with this same cut file using a different color thread, and I really loved the way that it looked. The only thing I'm a little bit unhappy about at this stage, which is totally my fault, I do kind of wish I hadn't cut that heart out of the center. I wish I had left that back in. So I do still have that heart piece here, and I may end up adhering it back in if I can cover it up well enough. We'll see. But that's what I'm starting with. So I'm using the Felicity Lindsey kit, which I've got lots of bits and pieces left from that, and I've also pulled some wood grained patterned paper from my stash as well. So that's what I'm going with. We will hop on to fast forward and get stuck into the process. Okay, so I've started off here by trimming off that branding strip, and I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do with that heart that has been cut out of the center. I thought about just trying to stick it back in, but it was the line was going to be too visible. So then I had this idea of using the wood grain paper, which is going to be the mat for my page. And I went back into Silhouette, opened up this cut file again, and then cut a heart out that was about a ½ inch bigger, I think, around each side. And I'm going to mat that center polka dot heart onto the wood grain backing heart and then pop that into the middle. So because I am matting this page, I'm just trimming down about 1/4 inch from each side. Or it looks like it may be a bit more, about ½ inch from each side. And then you can see just at the top left there, I did put some just plain white printer paper on the back of that page, just so that there wasn't a really big gap, and it covered up some of the stitching, and then I've adhered that. I did distress the edges of the white polka dot paper, and I'm also going through and using my distresser around the edges of this wood grain heart. And then I will do the same to the white polka dot heart before layering them up. I hadn't used my distressing tool for so many years, and then I started using it again recently. You may have seen on some of my videos, and I just really love that extra bit of texture that it adds to my layout. So I do use it quite often now. It's pretty old, it's a Making Memories one, but it still works really well. I will also just take a moment to say that while I'm recording this, there is the start of a pretty big storm going on outside. It's a once a year storm, so if you hear some weird noises, it may be thunder or the gusts of wind that are flying around. So some foam on the back of that to pop it up off the page, and layered that up, and now I'm really happy with the way that that looks. I like the way that the backing of the wood grain on that heart mirrors the backing of the wood grain on the page itself. So I did end up printing a slightly smaller version of this photo, and the reason for that was that the larger one just really covered up too much of that stitched heart and I couldn't quite make it work. So I have printed it off a little bit smaller, and as usual I am now going and adding a nice white cardstock border to that photo. Now you can see there's some stuff stuck down there. I did edit a fair big chunk out of this video where I played around with different mats for the photo, and I just could not get something that I was happy with. I think it was a good half an hour that I was messing around with it, and I pulled it off. I pulled the backing off a couple of different times. I think I even ended up reprinting the photo, and yeah, in the end I decided to just scale it back and go nice and simple. So I've got my white photo mat, I've used some red polka dot paper and just some, I think it's some pale pink tissue paper. So my title, I'm using two different fonts there. I've got those letter stickers, those red letter stickers, and then the gold scripted words, and my title is 4 Generations of Women. I didn't make you watch me sticking down all of those letters individually. So that's just nestled in nicely there behind the photo. And now I'm going to fuss around, as I do, with my embellishments. So all of these embellishments did come out of that Felicity Jane Lindsey kit. It's got some gorgeous florals and a really nice floral stamp as well, so I can make some more when I need to. But I've got the die cut pieces, and I also have some of the rubber pieces, and then I've also pulled some bits and pieces, some chipboard hearts and things like that out of my stash. So I know that I want something to go up on that top corner of the photo, but I just couldn't decide what it was, what I was going to be happy with. So in the end, I just went ahead and stuck that die cut floral down, and I've put a little foam dot behind it just to match the lift of the photo. That's another little die cut piece there that says love, and then there is one of these little die cut labels. So lots of fussing around trying to figure out where I want things to go. And also while I'm here, I do have a special little bit of bonus footage at the end of this video if you are interested. While I was making this video, my daughter was sitting down on the ground in my study playing and doing her own thing, and I noticed what she was saying and what she was doing while she was working on her own little scrapbook album. And so when I was finished with this layout, I invited her up to my desk and asked her if she wanted to make her own little scrapbooking video. So the last 5 minutes of this video will be a little bonus of Violet's scrapbooking video. I think it's pretty cute, but I understand that not everybody thinks that other people's kids are cute. So it is there if you want to watch it, and she's super excited to be making her YouTube debut. So like I said, that's the last 5 minutes of this video footage. So you've seen me there stick down one of those little rubber hearts. I have just used my art glitter glue. I don't know how well that's going to go on the rubber pieces. You know, rubber is notoriously difficult to stick down onto pages long term, but I'm using the art glitter glue and I'll see how it goes. I also have this rosette that I had pre-made, and it did have an epoxy heart sticker on top of it, but I didn't like that for this layout. So I ripped that off, and now I am just holding down some adhesive on another one of those die cut florals from the kit. And I'm really happy with the way that that little rosette looks. It's a teeny tiny little rosette. And you can see I'm still trying to make that rubber floral set work, but I don't actually think it makes it onto this part of the page. I can't quite remember for sure now, but I don't think it does. So in the die cuts pack, there were also these really tiny little die cut paper hearts or cardstock hearts, and I do end up scattering a few of those around across the page. There's a darker pink, a lighter pink, and then I think a white as well. So just mirroring the placement of the embellishments on the top left of the photo, I have got a little banner rubber charm piece which says, I think, documented, and then I'm nestling that underneath the little rosette piece there, and it does need a little bit of foam behind it because that photo is sitting up quite high, so the rosette will need to sit up as well. And am I going to stick it down? Yes, there we go, finally. So much fussing with embellishments. Okay, I'm coming back on live just to talk through my thought process at the moment. I've been fussing around a little bit with some embellishments, trying to figure out where I want things to go, but where I'm getting stuck with this at the moment is there's a lot that I want to say about this photo, and there's really nowhere appropriate for me to put it on the layout with this particular design. So what I've gone and done is I found another piece of that wood grain background paper that I had. I've cut it down to 6 by 12. I've typed up my journaling. If I can get that up here, you might be able to see. There we go. I've typed up my journaling in Photoshop and I've sized that to 5 by 11, so it's the same 1/2 inch border around that as is on the layout. And so I will have another little 6 by 12 insert along, a 6 by 12 page protector alongside this layout, which will house my journaling, because like I said, there was a lot that I wanted to say. It was a special photo and there's lots of thoughts that I have about the 4 of us being together. So I will be repeating using these alpha stickers, these pink alpha stickers, and I've grabbed the word love, so just to bring some consistency across between the layout and the journaling. And I'm also going to use this little bit of white space down here to do some messy stitching with that variegated thread, again just to tie the 2 pieces together. So I'll pop you back on fast forward while I finish everything off. Alright, so I'm just getting ready to punch some holes onto that journaling page for the messy heart stitching. So I'm using these nested heart dies that I have in my little metal die collection, and I'm going to pop it down. I apologize for the back of my head there, but I had to get over the top to see what I was doing. So I'm just holding it down against the page, and then I'm running my awl through the inside of that and just eyeballing the distance to poke holes all the way around the inside of that heart, and then a little bit of washi just to help hold it in place while I do the other side. So now that I punched those holes, I have sped this up quite a bit because I don't think you need to laboriously watch it, but I did want to keep it in so that you can get a bit of an idea of how I've done the messy stitching. So it's super random. I've got all those holes punched around. I started up on one edge and I'm just randomly running the thread from one side of the heart to the other, and I'm trying to vary the distance that I go, and I'm trying to vary the direction that I go in. So it is slightly out of frame, but I think you can still get an idea. So it's starting to come together now, and I'll be honest, when I was first doing it, I wasn't sure how it was going to work out. But once I finish it off, it does look really cool. I really like this technique. And yeah, that variegated thread just adds a little bit more pop to it. So I'm having a look at it now. I'm just making sure that there's no gaps and running my needle underneath. And I think that's about it. So I'm going to tie that off. And I decided to pop another one up the top there. So that's a bit of a closer look at how they finished off. And I think they look really good. I think it ties the 2 pages in together really nicely. So I'm distressing the edge of that paper again before I adhere it down onto the backing. And again, just to make sure that there was some consistency and the 2 pages are going to be tied together, I have pulled in some more of those red block alpha stickers, and I had initially decided to make the subtitle on this page All This Love, but I think in the end I just stick with This Love, and the reason for that is because the this word just nestled in really nicely into the top of the word love. And this time you do get to see me sticking those alphas down with my tweezers nice and carefully. Okay, so there's the two side by side. I really like how they tie in with each other. I think it's yeah, just repeating those elements, the stitching, the titles and the alphas and the distressing. I think that's a really good way to tie the two together, especially because that page on the left doesn't have any photos. It is just purely journaling. I didn't want it to look like it was just hanging out there in the middle doing nothing. So I had stamped my date onto that Felicity Jane die cut tag, but I didn't like the way that it looked. So I'm going to fix that up by, I've run just a plain piece of cardstock through my typewriter and I've retyped the date on it and it fits perfectly. So I'm just going to adhere that over the top of the stamped date and that will cover that up perfectly, and I'm much happier with the way that that date looks now. Come those tweezers. Have to do everything precisely. Okay, so that rubber floral piece did make it onto the page and it ends up on the top left hand side of that page. So I'm just trying to figure out how I want this little cluster to go. And I think initially I had planned on using, I have that piece there that says never forget this moment. I'm not actually sure where that came from in the kit, but it definitely fit the story that I was telling on this page, so I wanted to keep it in. And it's sitting on just a scrap piece of paper that I ran through a fancy border punch. And I think I then decide that it's not going to work for me to have both the date and that little phrase stacked on top of each other next to that floral piece. So I'm going to end up just sticking the date underneath that floral piece there. And that little documented rubber piece that I'd stuck down, that's coming up. And in its place is going that trimmed down, never forget this moment phrase with the really pretty decorative punched floral pattern paper underneath it, just to give it a little bit of extra interest. And there's the little violet hands that came in. She was really keen to help me out with this layout. I think she was just excited to see Granny in the photo, who's no longer with us, and she was also excited to see a photo of herself as a baby. So I grabbed another scrap piece of that floral paper and I am very carefully running it through this decorative border punch, and that is to pop underneath the date on that label, just to repeat the element from the cluster down on the bottom right of the photo and repeat that same thing up at the cluster at the top left of the page. So adding some double-sided tape, and when I have stuck it down, I've just made sure that it's only the very bottom part of that decorative border that is showing underneath the label. I didn't want to have too much of it showing there. And I'm going to trim that down, and then off camera, fussing away with something, quite possibly giving Violet some supplies that she wanted for her little scrapbook page. And then now I'm ready to stick that down at the top. So I'm going to finish off these pages with a little bit of embellishing on the journaling page. There's not a lot, it's just this rubber banner, which I think says "with all my heart" going on top of that little thread, messy thread heart. And then I'll finish off by scattering some of those tiny little pink hearts around the page from the die cut kit. So that is it for this process. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. And as I said, I've got 5 minutes at the end of this video, which is Violet's little scrapbooking debut. If you are so inclined to watch it, I do hope you enjoy it. I think it's very cute. Otherwise, there are some close-up photos coming up straight away. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.
So what I'm going to do is just get my glue, get this, and stick it on here, which I do go. And then I'm just going to do this. And what I'm going to do is just bob that around. And where can I put this?
It's your page.
Just measure. I need another page. Thank you. What I'm going to do is just stick that there. How many is this going to be long? The $6 that I'm going to be long. Is that going to be sticked on here next to Gwenny? Because I really love Gwenny. Now I'm going to stick this next to Granny. Now I'm going to get this ribbon. And I just need this.
Not that piece.
To see how Granny is really long. To my mummy. $30. Okay. So it's going to be pendants. This one is 41 cheaper. Then I'll get another one for cheaper. Because this one is for cheaper. Put some glue on it. That might get colourful. Boards, I mean. Then what I'm going to do is just do this and up. I'm going to decorate. I just got to do something which is important inside. One and two. I'm going to close that off. And I'm just going to put this back on. Okay. I'm just going to grab some stars. These tools. And now we'll just grab some glue.
Yeah, you can use your box of supplies.
Thank you. Of supplies. I'm just going to use my box. Which I need is my
In your video.
So that's a bit just crazy. Oh my god, it's awake. So I have to do it quickly while I'm recording this message to someone. To Jima and Jeepa. And I'm just going to cut that out to them. And then just on the white bit, then I'm just going to sign off on the bit that makes the crazy and not too much about it. But I for Ilo, for Milo is milk. So I'm going to use that, which is my people has a little naughty girl Violet. Thanks for watching.